Well, hello. In this particular session, I want to consider the idea of building an implementation of Sage CRM. So how we go about planning and implementing a low-risk project and how we build the consultancy team's competence and confidence through an initial implementation of Sage CRM. Essentially, we're going to be thinking here about project management within a Sage CRM implementation context. Now, the very, very good news is that there is nothing intrinsically difficult within a Sage CRM implementation project. Much of what I'm just about to talk about really is true for just about any IT system that you want to carry out. And the good news is that the actual installation of Sage CRM, the sales, marketing, and customer service modules, is straightforward. If you are, however, going to implement Sage CRM successfully, especially in the context where it's integrated with a Sage accounting system, then you need to be prepared to be very disciplined in the way in which you approach every part of the project. And that, I mean, every part of the project, right from the very start of the project, how you think about its initiation, how you intend to plan the actions to be carried out, and how you then actually execute those actions. All of these require someone to have a very strong control of the project. And this control and discipline will need to run from the beginning of the work right to the end of the work. And it's a control that isn't just about an individual consultant. It is a level of control that needs to get in a buy-in from everyone who is part of this. So it's not just your own actions that need to be controlled and managed, but the whole team that includes the customer representative, the users, and other stakeholders. They all need to be clear about the project expectations. So you'd have to have clear project goals and how you can then measure your achievement of those project goals and what would be the customer's success criteria for meeting those. These are all, you can think of these ideas of good idea of what the system objective is, the implementation objective is, and how you will then go about measuring that. Now, if you're coming to an implementation of a project, then I think there are three key elements that you need to consider. What is it that we have to do? How much time do we have to do it? And how much money is available for us to do it? And that money here is standing for any of the resources that are available to us. Now, if you're a project manager, you've probably hit these ideas before, and you probably have realized that all of these factors, what we have to do, the scope, how much time we have to do it, the time, and how much money or resources available for us to do it, the cost, are interrelated constraints that need to be carefully monitored. They all interrelate, so a change in one constraint will immediately affect the others. And these are the three basic constraints, but there is actually the fourth constraint that we need to understand, and that is quality. And that ties back to what the project is all about and how a customer can measure the achievement of project goals and their own success criteria. So Sage implementation projects are constrained by scope, the features and customizations to be included, the time available, the cost, and the final quality. One constraint cannot be changed without affecting the others. They compete against each other. So when you increase the scope of a project, if you make a decision to add some more features, that will typically mean an increase of time and cost. So a tight time frame as well as a constraint can also mean a change in the cost. So if you bring forward the deadline, then how will you meet the requirements to include everything within the project? Do you get people to work longer hours, or do you need additional people to get the job done on time? And likewise, the inverse is true, that if you decide to cut out or increase the timeline, you may actually be able to get more into the project, because you can increase the scope if you've relaxed the time. But all of these ideas about the scope and the tight time fit in to, well, the reality that someone has to pay for this. There has to be resources that are made available for the project. So if you've got a budget, that is going to impact exactly how much time you have. Do you have the right people for the right amount of time in order to get the job done? And if you don't have the right number of people, but your timeline can't be fixed, can't be changed, then you may need to reduce the scope. You may need to decide that certain features aren't going to be included within the release of Sage CRM as part of your project. Now, I said that these ideas of scope and time and budget, they all play into this fourth constraint, quality. And this is a nebulous idea. How well are we meeting our objectives? So if we have a very high quality constraint about acceptance of a feature or a change, then that will impact everything. Changing the quality constraint can affect other constraints. For example, increasing the required quality level for the project can put demands on cost and time. And quality within the context of a Sage CRM project is not just whether a feature works, but rather how the user experiences the system. What is the performance like? Is the screen design right? And it makes sense that when we think about the interaction between the other constraints of the system, that quality sits in the middle of the triangle, because it's influenced by and acts itself as an influencer on all of the other project constraints. The user experience has to be at the heart of the Sage CRM project. But whatever project methodology you use within your projects, and the workbooks that we provide within the context of CRM's help, etc., we don't actually mind how you deliver and what project methodology you use. Your work is going to be about managing these constraints to achieve a successful project delivery. So you may be coming from a background where waterfall methodologies are used, although most people now are using some form of agile or rapid application development approach. Now, if we think about how we deliver, we've got options that we can deliver our project with a big bang. So we are rolling out across all of the departments at the same time. Or we can take a view that what we do is a phased adoption. Or we can do a parallel adoption. These are different project approaches where everything is in one single project. They are sequential in a phased or semi-sequential in a phased adoption, or we can have parallel projects racing to be able to implement features. Now, we need to think carefully about the risks involved in each type of implementation. You can approach the implementation of Sage CRM as any of these ways. Now, I think that the phased project offers the best approach where professional services are scarce. So where you are constrained by your colleagues or team members that don't know much about either CRM as a principle or don't know much about Sage CRM as a specific skill set, and you want to minimize the risk at the same time of being able to demonstrate a clear benefit for the system, then a phased approach is the best way of doing this. So you can see different modules of Sage CRM being rolled out across a customer's organization in a sequence. Now this phased approach also allows for a project team to learn from the process of implementation. So that should mean that the team becomes better at understanding the amount of work that each phase would actually take. Smaller phases allow for better estimation and baselining for each subsequent phase. So imagine you decide to roll out, you start the implementation of Sage CRM inside the customer service team, then you roll it out to the sales team, then you roll it out to marketing. Now, I've talked about elsewhere in other projects, in other presentations, about the idea of baselining. At the start of a project, each of the constraints has to be baseline. That means that your estimates are produced against each project constraint to allow the project manager to get a sense or a temperature reading at defined milestones to determine how well the project is progressing. This allows for corrective actions to be taken if the project is veering off track. Monitoring the baseline and taking corrective action is part of any of the risk analysis that you're doing and the mitigation that all project managers need to do during a project. And you'll often need to come up with contingency usages within your project plan. So one of the things that I would advise you to do is, in all of your time estimates, think about building in contingency so you have that ability to allow for slippage within the different aspects of the project. Now, I said right towards the beginning of our session, it doesn't matter what type of methodology you use inside a Sage CRM implementation. It doesn't matter whether you use a waterfall or an iterative approach. Each can be equally successful, and some of our partners will have developed their own very pragmatic approaches. I think the key factor to any project success is really your confidence and experience in managing the process. And we're starting to get to probably the area that I think is the most crucial aspect of a project implementation. It's going to be communication. In most projects, I said right at the beginning, you need to have control over your project. In most projects, there could be many people working on different aspects of the project. You'll have people doing the initial analysis with the business to be able to work out what is required and then implementing that within the case of the workflows within Sage CRM and designing the screens, etc., around the customer needs. A project manager needs to be able to communicate with everyone who is in that team, whether it's the people gathering the requirements, understanding the scope, identifying the risks, and communicating where you are within the project and managing expectations as you go through. If there is a failure to communicate, it will lead to perhaps poorly defined requirements, and think about those constraints of cost, scope, time, quality. This can lead to serious confusion amongst team members and ultimately could lead to a failure to meet the customer's expectations for the project if you don't make sure that you place communication right at the heart of it. Now, each step in an implementation requires a large amount of non-technical project management. These are not skills and requirements that are unique to Sage CRM. So anyone who has successfully implemented a Sage accounting solution or another software solution should be equally capable of implementing at Sage CRM.